Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight's exploration takes us into the miraculous world of medicine, a realm where human curiosity, courage, and persistence have shaped the way we live our lives. It is the story of healers and scientists, of remedies both humble and extraordinary, and of discoveries that changed not just individuals, but the fate of entire civilizations. Some of what we'll encounter is ancient. Secrets whispered across millennia through clay tablets, herbal brews, and instruments carved from stone. Other moments are astonishingly modern, filled with technologies that let us peer into cells, manipulate our very own genes, or keep hearts beating with a steady rhythm. But together, they trace one of humanity's most remarkable journeys. Our attempt to ease suffering, to extend life, and to understand the fragile miracle of being alive. If these calm explorations help you unwind, or give you a peaceful way to end your day, consider liking and subscribing, or share your thoughts in the comments. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. Now, if you're ready, let's begin. The first known surgery was performed thousands of years ago. The idea of surgery feels deeply modern, bound up with white coats, sterile gloves, and gleaming lights. Yet the very first known surgical procedures reach far back into prehistory. Archaeologists have unearthed human bones that bear unmistakable signs of cutting, scraping, and even healing, evidence that early people not only attempted surgery, but sometimes succeeded. One of the most astonishing finds comes from a site in what is now France, where a skeleton dating back more than 7,000 years showed a carefully amputated forearm, with bone regrowth that proved the patient lived on for years afterward. To imagine such a procedure carried out without anesthesia, antibiotics, or even metal instruments is staggering. These first healers must have relied on sharp stone tools, herbal poultices, and raw courage. Their work reminds us that medicine's roots lie not only in science, but also in the timeless human desire to preserve life. Ancient trepanation involved drilling holes into skulls. Among the earliest and most mysterious surgical practices is trepanation, the deliberate cutting or drilling of holes into the skull. Evidence for it stretches across continents and millennia, from South America to Europe to Africa, suggesting it was practiced independently by many cultures. Some skulls show multiple openings, with clear signs of bone healing, meaning the patient survived the ordeal. But why was it done? The answers remain uncertain. Some researchers believe trepanation was performed to treat head trauma, releasing pressure after injury. Others suggest it was intended to cure seizures, headaches, or mental disturbances. Still others think it carried spiritual or ritual significance, a way of opening the head to let out evil spirits. Whatever the motivation, the practice is a stunning testament to early medical bravery. To endure such a procedure without modern painkillers is almost unimaginable. And yet, somehow, people did and lived to tell the tale. The Egyptians used moldy bread to heal wounds. In ancient Egypt, healers relied on remedies that often combined ritual with observation. One of the most remarkable treatments they used was moldy bread pressed against wounds. At first glance, it seems crude, perhaps even dangerous. Yet modern science reveals that the Egyptians were unknowingly harnessing the power of naturally occurring antibiotics. Certain molds produce substances that inhibit bacterial growth, a principle that centuries later would lead to the discovery of penicillin. Egyptian medical papyri described mixtures of honey, grease, and moldy bread applied to infections, suggesting a keen awareness that some treatments worked better than others. Whether by chance or through careful trial and error, these ancient healers stumbled upon a practice that saved countless lives. It reminds us that medicine is not always born from formal laboratories or conscious theory. Sometimes it grows from intuition, observation, and the willingness to experiment with the materials the earth provides. Honey has been used as medicine since antiquity. Sweet, golden honey has always been more than food. For thousands of years, it has been revered as a natural medicine. Ancient Egyptians, Greeks, Chinese, and indigenous peoples across the world all recognized its unusual healing properties. Honey contains enzymes that produce hydrogen peroxide in small amounts, making it naturally antibacterial. It also forms a protective barrier when applied to wounds, keeping them moist while fending off infection. Soldiers in antiquity carried honey into battle as a treatment for cuts and burns. Even today, hospitals sometimes use sterilized medical honey in bandages for patients with chronic wounds that resist modern drugs. Beyond the body, honey was also used to soothe sore throats, calm coughs, and preserve medicines. The simple product of bees gathering nectar became one of humanity's oldest allies in the fight against disease. Its survival across cultures and centuries shows how deeply medicine is entwined with the natural world. Leeches were once prescribed for almost everything. For much of history, medicine was dominated by the idea of balancing the body's humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. When illness struck, doctors often believed the solution was to drain away excess fluid, particularly blood. Enter the leech. These small, wriggling creatures became one of the most widely used medical tools of all time. From the Middle Ages through the 19th century, leeches were applied to patients with fevers, headaches, infections, and even mental illness. Entire industries grew up around their collection and trade, with millions of leeches harvested each year. Though the practice seems strange now, it wasn't entirely misguided. Leech saliva contains anticoagulants that prevent clotting, keeping blood flowing freely. Today, leeches are still used in microsurgery to relieve blood congestion in delicate tissues, such as reattached fingers or ears. Their persistence across the centuries is a reminder that even the strangest remedies can hold truth. Hippocrates is called the father of medicine. In ancient Greece, a physician named Hippocrates set down ideas that still echo in medicine today. Living in the 5th and 4th centuries BCE, he challenged the notion that illness was caused by angry gods or evil spirits. Instead, he argued that disease arose from natural causes, influenced by environment, diet, and lifestyle. This was revolutionary. Hippocrates also emphasized careful observation, keeping detailed notes on symptoms, progression, and possible outcomes. His teachings formed the basis of what became known as the Hippocratic Corpus, a collection of medical texts that influenced doctors for centuries. He also stressed ethics, the idea that physicians must do no harm and always act for the benefit of their patients. For this, he is remembered as the father of medicine. While many of his theories were flawed, his shift toward rational, evidence-based practice marked a turning point, planting seeds for the scientific medicine we know today. The Hippocratic Oath still shapes medical ethics today. One of Hippocrates' most enduring legacies is the oath that bears his name. Though rewritten many times across history, the Hippocratic Oath continues to guide physicians in their responsibilities toward patients. Its central promise, first, do no harm, remains a foundation of medical ethics. Ancient versions bound doctors to secrecy, to share knowledge with students, and to respect the trust placed in them. Modern adaptations focus less on religious invocations and more on universal values: compassion, honesty, and the commitment to use medicine for healing, never for harm. Medical students around the world often recite some form of the oath at graduation, symbolically joining a tradition that stretches back more than 2,000 years. Though the wording changes with time, the essence endures. It is a reminder that medicine is not only a science of cures, but also a moral practice rooted in trust, responsibility, and human dignity. Galen's writings dominated medicine for centuries. In the Roman Empire, a physician named Galen rose to extraordinary influence. Born in the 2nd century CE, he studied medicine in Greece and Alexandria before serving as a doctor to gladiators and eventually the emperors themselves. Galen wrote extensively on anatomy, physiology, and treatment, drawing on dissections of animals to infer how the human body worked. His writings became so authoritative that for more than 1,000 years, across Europe and the Middle East, they were treated almost as unquestionable truth. Students memorized his theories, physicians prescribed according to his methods, and critics often found themselves silenced. While Galen was wrong about many things, he insisted, for example, that blood ebbed and flowed in the body rather than circulating. His vast synthesis of knowledge preserved medical traditions through the Dark Ages. His dominance shows how medicine, like all science, advances not just by discovery, but also by eventually challenging authority. Medieval hospitals were often run by monks. In medieval Europe, hospitals were very different from the bustling medical centers we know today. Many were established and operated by monasteries, where monks cared for the sick as an act of religious duty. These hospitals were not primarily places of cure, but of comfort. Patients were offered food, shelter, prayers, and basic remedies drawn from herbal gardens. Medicine and spirituality were deeply intertwined, with healing seen as a way to serve both body and soul. Some of these institutions grew remarkably sophisticated, with dedicated wards, written records, and even rules of hygiene. Others were little more than hospices, caring for the poor and dying. Though limited in their medical effectiveness, medieval hospitals played a vital role in shaping the idea of organized care, creating spaces where communities supported one another in times of illness. In their quiet halls, the first steps toward modern healthcare were being laid. Early surgeons learned their trade on battlefields. War has always been a brutal teacher of medicine. In the chaos of medieval and early modern battlefields, surgeons were forced to make quick, often gruesome decisions. With no anesthetics beyond strong drink, no antibiotics, and crude tools, they amputated limbs, cauterized wounds, and stitched gashes under unimaginable conditions. Yet out of this hardship, surgical skill slowly advanced. Doctors learned how to control bleeding, how to prevent shock, and how to treat injuries no textbook had ever described. Many innovations, from tourniquets to triage, were born in the smoke and blood of war. These battlefield surgeons rarely had the luxury of study or reflection, but their raw experience saved countless lives and laid groundwork for future generations. It is a sobering reminder that some of medicine's most important lessons have been written not in classrooms, but in the crucible of human conflict. Bloodletting was a standard treatment for centuries. For much of recorded history, doctors believed health depended on the balance of 4 fluids, or humours: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Illness was thought to arise when these humours were out of proportion. The most common solution was to drain blood, in the hope that harmony would be restored. From ancient Greece through the 19th century, bloodletting became one of the most widespread medical treatments in the world. Patients might be cut with a lancet, pricked with a needle, or fitted with leeches to draw away fluid. Royalty, peasants, soldiers, and scholars alike submitted to the practice, sometimes for fevers, sometimes for headaches, even for diseases as varied as plague and depression. It seems shocking now, but in an era without germ theory, it made intuitive sense. Though often harmful, bloodletting reflects humanity's determination to intervene against sickness, even when understanding was still incomplete. Mercury was once prescribed as medicine. Few substances sound more dangerous to us today than mercury, the shimmering liquid metal. Yet for centuries, it was considered a cure. Ancient Chinese alchemists experimented with it, believing it might bring longevity. In the Renaissance, mercury became the standard treatment for syphilis, applied as ointments or even swallowed in pills. Patients endured dreadful side effects: excessive salivation, hair loss, tremors, and in many cases, poisoning severe enough to be fatal. Still, doctors persisted because mercury seemed at times to relieve symptoms. The toxic element was also used in laxatives, disinfectants, and diuretics well into the 19th century. Only with the rise of modern chemistry and a deeper understanding of toxicity did mercury's dangers outweigh its reputation as a medicine. The strange history of mercury reminds us that the boundary between poison and remedy has often been blurred, and that medicine is a story of trial, error, and evolution. Opium was used in ancient civilizations for pain relief. Long before the chemistry of morphine and codeine was understood, people knew that the poppy flower contained extraordinary power. As far back as Mesopotamia, more than 4,000 years ago, opium was harvested from the poppy's milky latex and used to relieve pain and induce sleep. Egyptian physicians prescribed it for headaches, digestive issues, and wounds. The ancient Greeks wrote about its use, and Arab physicians spread it further, refining its preparation. By the Middle Ages, opium had become one of the most prized medicines in the world. Yet its addictive properties were also recognized, even if poorly understood. In the 19th century, opium-based laudanum was sold openly in Europe and America, prescribed for everything from coughs to menstrual cramps. Though dangerous, opium taught physicians the profound power of plant chemistry, eventually leading to safer, more precise drugs. Its long history reflects both the promise and peril of medicine's search for relief. Quinine from bark saved lives from malaria. Malaria has haunted humanity for thousands of years, crippling armies, devastating communities, and shaping entire regions. One of the first truly effective treatments came from the bark of the cinchona tree, native to South America. Indigenous peoples used the bark to treat fevers, and when Jesuit missionaries observed its effects in the 17th century, the knowledge spread across the world. The active compound, quinine, became a lifeline in malaria-ridden colonies, enabling European expansion into tropical regions. Soldiers and explorers carried tonic water infused with quinine, a tradition that gave rise to the modern gin and tonic. Quinine was one of the earliest plant-derived medicines to be scientifically studied, paving the way for synthetic anti-malarial drugs. Its story demonstrates how local knowledge, careful observation, and global exchange combined to change history, saving millions from a disease that continues, even today, to challenge human charm. Ingenuity. Smallpox was the first disease prevented by a vaccine. For centuries, smallpox was among the most feared diseases on Earth. It killed millions, left survivors scarred, and reshaped empires. The first real victory against it came in the 18th century, when the English physician Edward Jenner observed that milkmaids exposed to cowpox, a mild infection, seemed immune to smallpox. In 1796, Jenner deliberately inoculated a boy with material from cowpox sores, then exposed him to smallpox. The child remained healthy. This experiment marked the birth of vaccination, a word derived from vacca, Latin for cow. At first controversial, Jenner's method soon spread across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. It represented a radical new idea that deliberate exposure to a harmless version of disease could protect against the deadly form. Smallpox became the first disease in history to be eliminated through human effort, officially declared eradicated in 1980. It remains a symbol of medicine's greatest triumph. Edward Jenner used cowpox to create immunity. this famous experiment deserves closer attention. In an age when many believed diseases were caused by bad air or divine punishment, Jenner took a bold step. He noticed that dairy workers often caught cowpox, a mild disease contracted from cattle, but rarely suffered from deadly smallpox. To test his theory, he scraped fluid from the blisters of a milkmaid and inserted it into cuts on the arm of a young boy named James Phipps. Weeks later, when Jenner exposed the child to smallpox, James showed no symptoms. Though risky by today's standards, this demonstration proved immunity could be induced. Jenner's careful documentation persuaded others to adopt the technique, even against skepticism. His work did not end smallpox overnight, but it lit a path toward modern immunology. By linking observation with experiment, Jenner transformed fear into possibility, creating one of the most powerful tools humanity has ever wielded against disease. Vaccination spread across the world astonishingly fast. The idea of vaccination, once proven, raced around the globe. In the early 19th century, doctors carried Jenner's technique from village to village, often transporting cowpox material in the arms of children who'd been freshly inoculated. Spain even sent a mission across its empire with 22 orphaned boys who served as living carriers of the vaccine to the Americas and Asia. By the mid-19th century, vaccination programs had become official policy in many countries, dramatically reducing smallpox deaths. What is striking is how quickly a new medical idea, born in rural England, became a global practice. At a time without airplanes, refrigeration, or modern distribution networks, vaccination still spread with extraordinary speed because the stakes were so high. Smallpox had terrorized humanity for millennia. At last, a real defense existed. The willingness of communities to adopt vaccination set the stage for modern public health campaigns still saving lives today. Anesthetics revolutionized surgery in the 19th century. Before anesthetics, surgery was an ordeal of almost unimaginable horror. Patients were held down by assistants while surgeons raced against time, their only tools speed and skill. Pain was overwhelming and survival uncertain. All of this changed in the 19th century with the discovery of substances that could render patients unconscious. First came ether, then chloroform, and eventually safer agents. Suddenly, operations could be slower, more precise, and less traumatic. The development of anesthesia transformed surgery from a brutal last resort into a field of real possibility. Complex operations on the abdomen, chest, and brain became feasible for the first time. Public demonstrations of anesthetics drew astonished crowds, changing not just medicine, but the very perception of what was possible. Anesthesia is so commonplace today that it is easy to forget its radical impact. It turned agony into silence, fear into hope, and surgery into a science rather than a terror. Ether was the first publicly demonstrated anesthetic. In October of 1846, in a surgical theater in Boston, a dentist named William Morton astonished the world. He administered ether to a patient about to undergo removal of a neck tumor. As the surgeon cut, the patient lay still and silent, showing no signs of pain. The audience, composed of skeptical physicians, erupted in wonder. News of the demonstration spread rapidly, and ether soon became the first widely adopted anesthetic. Its effects were dramatic, but not without drawbacks. Ether was flammable, had an unpleasant odor, and sometimes caused dangerous side effects. Even so, its success marked a turning point. For the first time, doctors could operate without subjecting patients to unbearable agony. The ether dome, where this event took place, remains a landmark in medical history, symbolizing the moment surgery truly began to evolve into the discipline we recognize today. Chloroform quickly became a popular alternative. Not long after ether entered operating rooms, chloroform arrived as a rival. Discovered in the 1830s, it was introduced into surgery a decade later, promoted by physicians who praised its pleasant smell and rapid effect. Chloroform soon captured public imagination when Queen Victoria used it during the births of 2 of her children, giving royal endorsement to the idea of pain-free childbirth. Doctors across Europe and America adopted it enthusiastically. Despite the risks, chloroform could cause sudden cardiac arrest, even in healthy patients. For decades, a debate raged over which anesthetic was safer, with different countries favoring one or the other. Eventually, both gave way to newer, more predictable agents. Yet chloroform's story illustrates the extraordinary eagerness with which the world embraced the possibility of relief from suffering. It was a dangerous ally, but for countless patients, it was the first true escape from surgical terror. Penicillin was discovered accidentally. In 1928, Alexander Fleming returned from a holiday to find something unusual in his London laboratory. A petri dish of Staphylococcus bacteria had been contaminated by mold. Around the mold was a clear zone where the bacteria had died. Fleming realized the mold, later identified as Penicillium notatum, was releasing a substance lethal to bacteria. He called it penicillin. At first, his discovery attracted little attention. Only years later, with the outbreak of the Second World War, did a team of researchers develop methods to mass-produce it. Penicillin quickly became known as a miracle drug, saving soldiers from infections that once proved fatal. Its discovery changed the world, ushering in the antibiotic era. What began as a chance observation became one of the most important breakthroughs in medical history, a reminder that great discoveries often emerge not from what we seek, but from what we stumble upon. Antibiotics changed the course of human history. Before antibiotics, even minor wounds could kill. Infections that began with a scratch or a toothache often spread uncontrollably. The arrival of penicillin and the antibiotics that followed transformed this reality. Suddenly, diseases like pneumonia, tuberculosis, and sepsis could be treated effectively. Mortality rates plummeted, and surgeries became far safer since infection could be managed. The ripple effects were immense. Modern medicine, from organ transplants to cancer chemotherapy, relies on antibiotics to protect vulnerable patients. They also reshaped daily life, allowing people to survive illnesses that once wiped out families and communities. Entire generations grew up healthier, with longer life expectancies than their ancestors. The antibiotic revolution stands among the greatest triumphs of science, rivaling vaccines in its impact. Yet it also carries a warning, because the very microbes antibiotics once conquered are evolving, and some are learning to resist their effects. Some bacteria are now resistant to every antibiotic. The triumph of antibiotics has given rise to a shadow: resistance. Bacteria are astonishingly adaptable. With each dose of an antibiotic, a few resistant strains may survive, multiply, and spread. Over decades, this process has produced superbugs that no current medicine can defeat. In hospitals around the world, strains of tuberculosis, gonorrhea, and staphylococcus have emerged that shrug off every available antibiotic. Doctors face patients with infections that were once trivial but now defy all treatment. The World Health Organization warns of a future where surgery, childbirth, and routine injuries may again carry mortal risk. Research into new drugs, bacteriophage therapies, and innovative approaches is racing to meet the threat, but the challenge is immense. The story of antibiotic resistance is both sobering and urgent. It shows how even the greatest medical victories are never final, but part of an ongoing struggle between human ingenuity, microbial evolution. The human body hosts a vast microbiome. Inside and upon every human body lives an entire universe of microorganisms, trillions of bacteria, fungi, and viruses, collectively called the microbiome. Far from being only threats, these microbes are essential to our health. In the gut, they help digest food, produce vitamins, and train the immune system. On the skin, they create a protective barrier against harmful invaders. Each person's microbiome is unique, shaped by diet, environment, genetics, and even birth method. Scientists are discovering that imbalances in the microbiome may contribute to obesity, allergies, mental health disorders, and autoimmune diseases. Fecal transplant therapies, probiotics, and dietary interventions are being studied as ways to restore balance. The idea that health depends not only on our own cells, but also on our microbial partners, has revolutionized medicine. We are not singular beings, but ecosystems, living symphonies of human and microbial life intertwined. Fecal transplants can save lives. Among the more surprising medical treatments to emerge in recent decades is the fecal transplant. For patients suffering from recurrent infections of Clostridioides difficile, a bacterium that can devastate the gut, traditional antibiotics often fail. Doctors discovered that transferring stool from a healthy donor into the patient's intestines could restore microbial balance and eliminate the infection. Success rates have been remarkably high, with many patients recovering after years of debilitating illness. Though the idea may sound unsettling, it reflects a growing understanding of the microbiome as a central player in health. Researchers are exploring whether similar approaches might help with inflammatory bowel disease, obesity, or even neurological conditions influenced by gut-brain connections. The treatment underscores a humbling truth. Sometimes, the key to healing lies not in eradicating microbes, but in restoring their delicate harmony within us. Medicine, at its best, learns to work with nature rather than against it. Insulin was discovered in the 20th century. Before insulin, a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes was essentially a death sentence. Patients, often children, could survive only a few months or years, wasting away despite desperate attempts at dietary control. In 1921, Canadian researchers Frederick Banting and Charles Best succeeded in isolating a substance from the pancreas that controlled blood sugar, insulin. They injected it into diabetic dogs and watched their symptoms vanish. Soon after, human trials brought miraculous results. Emaciated patients gained strength, color returned to their faces, and lives once slipping away were restored. The discovery of insulin transformed diabetes from a fatal disease into a manageable condition. It also marked a milestone in endocrinology, showing that hormones could be isolated and replaced. The Nobel Prize was awarded quickly, but the true reward was the millions of lives extended. Insulin remains one of the most important breakthroughs in modern medicine. The first insulin came from animals. In the early years after insulin's discovery, the only way to produce it in sufficient quantities was to extract it from the pancreases of animals, particularly cows and pigs. Factories processed thousands of organs to yield enough insulin for human patients. Though life-saving, these preparations were not perfect. Some patients developed allergic reactions or required frequent adjustments due to variations between batches. Still, for the first time in history, people with diabetes could live near normal lives. This animal-derived insulin remained the standard for decades, until advances in biotechnology allowed synthetic forms to be produced. The use of animal organs to sustain human health illustrates both the ingenuity and the limitations of early medicine. It also highlights the extraordinary efforts society was willing to make to preserve life, transforming a once fatal disease into a treatable condition, one painstaking batch at a time. Synthetic insulin changed diabetes treatment forever. In the 1980s, biotechnology achieved what had once seemed impossible, producing human insulin without animals. Using recombinant DNA technology, scientists inserted the human insulin gene into bacteria, which then churned out the hormone in vast quantities. This synthetic insulin was chemically identical to the natural version produced in the pancreas, eliminating many of the problems of animal-derived insulin. It also opened the door to modified insulins designed to act more quickly or last longer, tailoring treatment to patients' needs. Millions around the world gained access to safer, more consistent therapy. The creation of synthetic insulin was one of the first great triumphs of genetic engineering in medicine, showing how life's code could be rewritten to produce vital treatments. It turned insulin from a scarce and imperfect resource into a reliable cornerstone of diabetes care, saving countless lives every day. The X-ray allowed doctors to see inside the body. In 1895, German physicist Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen made a startling discovery. While experimenting with cathode rays, he noticed that a mysterious new kind of radiation could pass through solid objects and reveal hidden structures. When he placed his wife's hand before a photographic plate, the image revealed her bones and wedding ring, the first X-ray ever taken. Within months, X-ray machines appeared in hospitals worldwide. For the first time, doctors could peer inside living patients without surgery, detecting fractures, swallowed objects, and lung disease. The X-ray revolutionized diagnosis, turning invisible illness into visible reality. Though early practitioners exposed themselves to dangerous levels of radiation before safety was understood, the technology quickly became indispensable. From broken bones to cancer screenings, the X-ray opened a window into the body that medicine had never known before, reshaping the practice of diagnosis forever. Marie Curie helped pioneer medical radiology. The story of X-rays and radiation in medicine is inseparable from the work of Marie Curie. In the early 20th century, she and her husband Pierre isolated radioactive elements like radium and polonium, revealing new sources of penetrating energy. Marie envisioned their use in medicine, particularly for targeting tumors. During the First World War, she championed the creation of mobile X-ray units, known as Little Curies, which were sent to battlefields to help surgeons locate bullets and fractures. Thousands of wounded soldiers benefited from her vision. Curie's discoveries also laid the groundwork for radiation therapy and cancer treatment. Tragically, she herself suffered from prolonged exposure to radiation, long before its dangers were fully understood. Yet her legacy endures, the blending of physics, chemistry, and medicine that transformed both diagnosis and treatment. Few figures better embody the power of science to cross boundaries and heal. CT scans provide detailed three-dimensional views. X-rays revealed hidden bones and structures, but computed tomography, or CT scanning, took imaging to another dimension. Invented in the 1970s, CT scanners rotate around the body, taking many X-ray slices from different angles. Powerful computers then assemble these slices into detailed cross-sections and even full three-dimensional images. For the first time, doctors could see organs, tumors, and blood vessels with remarkable clarity, without a single incision. CT scanning has saved countless lives, allowing physicians to detect strokes, cancers, and internal injuries quickly and accurately. Its precision is so great that subtle differences in tissue density, invisible on traditional X-rays, become clear. Though it uses higher doses of radiation than regular imaging, its benefits often outweigh the risks, especially in emergencies. The CT scanner represents one of the most dramatic leaps in diagnostic power, a way of looking inside the body, almost as if peeling back its layers. Magnetic resonance imaging uses magnetism, not radiation. In the late 20th century, a new kind of imaging emerged that seemed almost like magic. Magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, does not rely on radiation at all. Instead, it uses powerful magnetic fields and radio waves to interact with hydrogen atoms in the body. When the magnetic field shifts, these atoms release signals that computers convert into astonishingly detailed images of soft tissues: the brain, spinal cord, muscles, and organs. Unlike CT scans, which excel at bones and dense structures, MRI can reveal subtle changes in cartilage, ligaments, and neural pathways. It is particularly vital in diagnosing brain tumors, multiple sclerosis, and spinal injuries. The experience can feel futuristic, lying inside a humming, tunnel-like machine, while invisible forces map your body. MRI transformed medicine not only by making diagnosis safer and more precise, but also by giving us vivid, almost artistic windows into the hidden architecture of human life. Ultrasound lets us see without cutting. Ultrasound harnesses something as simple as sound to create medical images. By sending high-frequency sound waves into the body and recording the echoes, ultrasound machines can reveal internal structures in real time. It is most familiar for showing images of babies before birth, where parents watch tiny hearts beating and fingers curling months before delivery. Yet ultrasound does much more. Doctors use it to study blood flow, detect gallstones, guide biopsies, and even deliver targeted therapies. Unlike X-rays or CT scans, ultrasound uses no radiation, making it safe for repeated use. Portable devices now bring imaging into rural clinics and even ambulances, where rapid diagnosis can save lives. The pictures may seem grainy compared to MRI, but ultrasound's speed, safety, and versatility have made it one of the most indispensable tools in medicine. With sound alone, doctors can see beneath the skin, turning echoes into insight. Stethoscopes changed how doctors listen to patients. Today, the stethoscope is such a familiar symbol of medicine that it feels timeless. Yet it was invented only in 1816 by a French physician named René Laennec. Before that, doctors often placed their ear directly on a patient's chest to listen to the heart and lungs. Laennec, seeking more precision and modesty, rolled up a piece of paper into a tube and discovered that the sounds became clearer. From this improvised experiment, the stethoscope was born. Over time, it evolved into the recognizable Y-shaped device, amplifying murmurs, crackles, and rhythms that reveal hidden disease. With a stethoscope, doctors could diagnose pneumonia, heart valve problems, and other conditions that were once invisible. Even in an age of high-tech imaging, stethoscopes remain vital, simple, portable, and personal. Every doctor bending close with this instrument participates in a tradition that began with one man's curiosity and a rolled piece of paper: thermometers standardized fever diagnosis. For much of history, doctors gauged fever by touch, pressing a hand to a patient's forehead and making a judgment. It was imprecise, and two physicians might disagree. The invention of the thermometer brought a revolution in measurement. By the 17th century, early glass thermometers were developed, though they were long and cumbersome. In the 19th century, smaller and faster versions became common in hospitals. For the first time, fever could be tracked in precise degrees, allowing doctors to notice patterns over hours and days. This simple tool transformed diagnosis and treatment, showing when infections worsened or improved. Later, thermometers became household objects, empowering families to monitor health themselves. Modern digital thermometers now deliver readings in seconds, but the principle is the same: turning touch into measurement, sensation into data. By standardizing fever, thermometers gave medicine a new language of numbers, enabling clearer understanding of disease. Blood pressure measurement revolutionized cardiology. The human pulse had always offered clues about circulation, But it was the invention of the sphygmomanometer in the late 19th century that allowed doctors to measure blood pressure directly. Using an inflatable cuff, a column of mercury, and a stethoscope, physicians could now quantify the force of blood moving through arteries. This breakthrough revealed hypertension, or high blood pressure, as a hidden but deadly risk factor for heart disease and stroke. Patients who felt perfectly well could now be warned of danger long before symptoms appeared. Tracking blood pressure became a cornerstone of preventive medicine, guiding lifestyle changes and treatments that save millions of lives each year. Today, automatic digital cuffs are common in homes, clinics, and pharmacies. Yet the principle remains the same as it was a century ago, listening to the rhythm of blood against an artery and turning it into knowledge. The first heart transplant shocked the world. In 1967, in Cape Town, South Africa, surgeon Christian Barnard performed an operation many thought impossible. He removed the failing heart of a patient and replaced it with a healthy donor heart. The patient, Louis Wojtkansky, lived for 18 days before succumbing to pneumonia. Though brief, his survival proved the concept. The world was electrified by the idea that an organ as vital as the heart could be replaced. Barnard became a global celebrity, and transplant programs soon expanded worldwide. Early patients faced challenges. Immune systems often rejected foreign hearts, and survival rates were low. Yet over time, new drugs and surgical techniques turned heart transplantation into a life-saving treatment for thousands each year. What once seemed unthinkable became routine in major hospitals. The first transplant remains a milestone, symbolizing both the daring of surgeons and the deep hope patients place in medical progress. Pacemakers keep millions of hearts beating. Sometimes, the human heart beats too slowly or irregularly to sustain life. In the mid-20th century, engineers developed devices that could send small electrical pulses to keep the heart on track. Pacemakers. The earliest models were bulky, requiring external batteries and wires. But by the 1960s, implantable versions were created, small enough to fit under the skin. These devices monitor the heart's rhythm and deliver gentle shocks when needed, restoring steady beats. Modern pacemakers are marvels of engineering, tiny, programmable, and powered by long-lasting batteries. Some even adjust to activity levels, speeding up when a patient exercises. Millions of people worldwide owe their lives and quality of life to these silent companions, ticking away inside their chests. Pacemakers are a reminder that medicine is not only about drugs or surgery, but also about the elegant fusion of biology and technology. Artificial hearts have been implanted in patients. When both ventricles of the heart fail, even pacemakers and transplants may not suffice. In such cases, researchers pursued the dream of creating a fully artificial heart. In 1982, surgeon Barney Clark became the first patient to receive a permanent mechanical heart called the Yarvi-7. Though he survived only 112 days, his case proved that replacing the heart with a machine was possible. Since then, technology has advanced, with devices serving as bridges to transplant, keeping patients alive while they await a donor organ. Fully artificial hearts remain rare, challenging to design, and fraught with complications, but progress continues. The concept that humanity might one day replicate our most vital organ is both sobering and inspiring. Artificial hearts stand at the boundary between biology and engineering, raising profound questions about what it means to replace the very engine of life with a machine. Dialysis machines replace kidney function. When kidneys fail, toxins build up in the blood, and life quickly hangs in the balance. In the 1940s, Dutch physician Willem Kolff built the first dialysis machine, cobbled together with sausage casings, a washing machine drum, and other improvised parts. This device filtered waste from the blood, mimicking kidney function. Over time, dialysis became a refined treatment, keeping patients alive for years, sometimes decades. Modern machines use semi-permeable membranes and precise pumps to cleanse the bloodstream several times a week. Though demanding, dialysis transformed kidney failure from a death sentence into a manageable condition. It also paved the way for kidney transplantation, giving patients a choice between mechanical and biological solutions. Each hum of a dialysis machine is a reminder of medicine's ingenuity, a mechanical lifeline born from desperation and creativity, still saving lives every day. Cochlear implants restore a sense of hearing. For people born profoundly deaf or who lose hearing later in life, cochlear implants opened extraordinary possibilities. Unlike hearing aids, which amplify sound, cochlear implants bypass damaged parts of the ear entirely. A microphone captures sound, a processor converts it into electrical signals, and tiny electrodes stimulate the auditory nerve directly. First developed in the 1970s, cochlear implants were controversial, raising debates within deaf communities about culture and identity. But for many users, they brought access to spoken language, music, and environmental sounds previously out of reach. Children with implants often learn to speak and integrate into hearing schools, while adults rediscover voices and sounds they thought lost forever. Though not a perfect restoration of hearing, cochlear implants represent one of the most profound examples of technology merging with biology to restore a human sense. They turn vibration into perception, electricity into the gift of sound. Bionic eyes are now becoming possible. For centuries, blindness seemed irreversible. Yet in recent decades, researchers have begun to develop bionic eyes, prosthetic devices that can restore partial vision. These implants work by capturing images from a camera mounted on glasses, converting them into electrical signals, and stimulating cells in the retina or visual cortex. Early systems provide only rudimentary sight, often limited to light, shapes, or outlines. But for patients who have lived in darkness, even distinguishing doorways, sidewalks, or the presence of loved ones can be life-changing. Advances in microelectronics and neural engineering continue to push the boundaries, with hopes of delivering richer visual detail in the future. Bionic eyes blur the line between human and machine, reminding us that senses once thought lost may one day be restored. They are glimpses of a future where blindness, like deafness before it, may be overcome by medicine and technology working hand in hand. Prosthetic limbs are controlled by thought. The loss of an arm or leg has always been devastating, but prosthetic technology has steadily advanced from simple wooden replacements to sophisticated robotic limbs. The most astonishing development came when scientists learned to connect prosthetics directly to nerves and muscles, allowing them to respond to thought. Electrodes detect signals from the brain intended for the missing limb and translate them into movement. A hand that opens and closes, fingers that grasp, an arm that bends. Some modern prosthetics even provide sensory feedback, letting wearers feel pressure or texture. These innovations transform prosthetics from passive tools into living extensions of the body, restoring independence and dignity. To watch someone pick up a glass of water or tie their shoes using a thought-controlled prosthetic is to witness science fiction becoming reality. It shows how far medicine has come in merging human intention with technology. Robotic surgery allows astonishing precision. Operating with human hands will always carry limits of steadiness and reach. Robotic surgery, first developed in the late 20th century, allows surgeons to control finely tuned robotic arms that can move with greater precision than fingers. Guided through tiny incisions, these arms can rotate in ways human wrists cannot. reducing trauma to the patient. Sitting at a console, the surgeon manipulates joysticks while cameras provide magnified, three-dimensional views of the surgical site. Robotic surgery has become especially common in delicate fields like urology and gynecology, where accuracy is crucial. Patients often experience less pain, faster recovery, and smaller scars. Though the machines are expensive and training demanding, their success hints at a future where surgery may become less invasive and more exact than ever before. In a sense, robotic surgery extends human hands into miniature instruments of near perfection. Telemedicine connects doctors and patients across continents. Once, seeing a doctor required travel to a clinic or hospital. Today, with telemedicine, consultation can happen across thousands of miles in real time. Using video calls, secure messaging, and digital monitoring, physicians can advise, diagnose, and even prescribe from afar. Rural communities, war zones, and even astronauts aboard the International Space Station rely on telemedicine to access care. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated its adoption, proving that vast numbers of routine appointments could be managed remotely. Wearable devices now transmit blood pressure, heart rhythm, or glucose levels directly to doctors, creating a continuous loop of information. Telemedicine cannot replace every examination, but for millions, it eliminates barriers of distance, cost, and time. It reflects medicine's shift into the digital age, where care is not confined by geography, but flows across networks, bringing healing to wherever people are. Space medicine prepares humans for life beyond Earth. Medicine has always adapted to new frontiers, and none is stranger than space. In orbit, astronauts face challenges unknown on Earth. Bone density shrinks without gravity, fluids shift upward causing puffy faces and vision problems, and radiation exposure threatens long-term health. NASA and other space agencies have developed entire fields of space medicine to study and counter these effects. Astronauts undergo strict exercise regimens, nutritional monitoring, and psychological support. Scientists test new materials and drugs to protect against radiation and immune changes. What they learn not only prepares humanity for future missions to Mars or beyond, but also sheds light on conditions back on Earth, from osteoporosis to muscle wasting. Space medicine asks a profound question: how adaptable is the human body? The answers will determine whether we can thrive not only on our home planet, but also in the infinite expanse above. Astronauts experience bone loss in microgravity. One of the most dramatic effects of space travel is bone loss. On Earth, gravity constantly stresses our skeletons, keeping bones dense and strong. In microgravity, that stress disappears. Astronauts can lose as much as 1% of their bone mass per month while living in orbit. This rapid weakening mirrors, in accelerated form, the osteoporosis that affects aging populations on Earth. To combat it, astronauts follow rigorous daily exercise routines, using resistance machines that simulate weightlifting. They also take nutritional supplements and undergo careful monitoring. The problem remains unsolved for long missions. Journeys to Mars could last years, raising fears of brittle bones and fractures upon return. Yet studying this process has already improved our understanding of bone biology on Earth, inspiring new treatments for osteoporosis patients. Astronauts, in sacrificing their bodies to science, teach us how gravity shapes life itself. DNA sequencing transformed modern medicine. The ability to read the code of life itself, DNA, has transformed medicine. In the 1970s, scientists first developed methods to determine the order of nucleotides in genetic material. By the early 2000s, the Human Genome Project mapped all 3 billion letters of human DNA. This immense achievement opened new doors, identifying genes linked to diseases, predicting risks, and tailoring treatments to individuals. Today, sequencing the genome is faster and cheaper than ever, sometimes costing less than a family dinner. Doctors use it to diagnose rare disorders, trace outbreaks, and guide cancer therapies. For patients, DNA sequencing can provide answers after years of mystery, or reveal hidden vulnerabilities that might one day be prevented. It is one of the most powerful tools medicine has ever gained. The ability to read the book of life, letter by letter, and begin to understand its language. Personalized medicine tailors treatments to your genes. For most of history, medicine treated diseases in broadly the same way for everyone. But the rise of genetic science is shifting this paradigm toward personalized medicine. By analyzing an individual's genetic makeup, doctors can predict how they might respond to certain drugs, which treatments are most likely to succeed, and what conditions they are predisposed to. For example, cancer therapies can now be chosen based on the mutations driving a tumor, rather than its location in the body. Patients with rare genetic disorders can sometimes receive targeted therapies designed specifically for their mutation. Even common drugs, like blood thinners or antidepressants, can be prescribed with greater safety and precision through genetic testing. Personalized medicine represents a future where treatment is not one-size-fits-all, but uniquely tailored. It turns the individuality of our DNA into a roadmap for care, bringing medicine closer than ever to the patient's own story. Gene therapy can correct faulty DNA. If disease is written into our genes, could it also be rewritten? Gene therapy attempts exactly that. By delivering healthy copies of a gene, silencing harmful ones, or editing DNA directly, scientists are beginning to correct the root causes of inherited illness. Early attempts in the 1990s were fraught with setbacks, but recent successes have brought new hope. Children with rare immune deficiencies, once doomed to early death, have been cured with gene therapy. Patients with forms of blindness have regained partial vision after receiving corrective genes delivered to their retinas. Advances like CRISPR promise even greater precision, allowing targeted edits to faulty sequences. Though risks remain, the principle is revolutionary, treating disease not by managing symptoms, but by repairing the blueprint itself. Gene therapy is medicine at its most fundamental level, rewriting the code of life to restore what was lost. CRISPR can edit human genes. In the past, altering human DNA seemed like the realm of science fiction. Then came CRISPR, a tool adapted from a natural defense system used by bacteria. In nature, bacteria use CRISPR to recognize and cut invading viral DNA. Scientists realized they could repurpose this system as molecular scissors, guided by customizable RNA, to target and edit almost any gene. Suddenly, correcting inherited mutations or reprogramming cells became thinkable. CRISPR has already been used in laboratory experiments to cure genetic diseases in animals, to modify crops for resilience, and even to edit human embryos in controversial trials. The simplicity and precision of CRISPR make it one of the most powerful tools ever discovered in biology. Yet it raises profound ethical questions. Where is the line between healing and enhancement? Medicine now holds the ability to rewrite life's code itself, with consequences still unfolding in ways both hopeful and unsettling. Stem cells can regrow damaged tissues. Stem cells are unique because they can become many different types of specialized cells: neurons, muscle fibers, blood cells, or skin. In embryos, they build entire bodies from a single fertilized egg. In adults, smaller populations of stem cells linger in bone marrow, skin, and intestines, quietly repairing damage day after day. Scientists realized that if these cells could be harnessed, they might regrow tissues destroyed by disease or injury. In the lab, stem cells have been coaxed into forming heart muscle, insulin-producing pancreatic cells, and even mini-brains that mimic early stages of development. Clinical trials are exploring whether stem cells can help repair spinal cord injuries, restore sight, or heal failing hearts. They carry risks, including uncontrolled growth, but their potential is staggering. Stem cells embody medicine's dream of regeneration, the possibility that our bodies may one day repair themselves as naturally as they once grew. Regenerative medicine aims to heal organs. Traditional medicine often focuses on managing disease or replacing what is lost. Regenerative medicine seeks something more ambitious, restoring damaged tissues and organs to full function. Using a combination of stem cells, growth factors, biomaterials, and sometimes gene editing, researchers aim to guide the body's own healing processes. Experimental treatments have already shown promise in regenerating skin for burn victims, repairing cartilage in arthritic joints, and even restoring parts of the heart after a heart attack. The field also includes bioengineering, where scientists build scaffolds that encourage cells to grow into organized tissues. Unlike transplants, which require donors and lifelong immune suppression, regenerative therapies hold the promise of personalized repair, built from the patient's own biology. Though still in its early stages, regenerative medicine represents one of the boldest frontiers. Not merely patching up the body, but coaxing it to rebuild itself from within. 3D printers can create human tissue scaffolds. Three-dimensional printing has escaped the world of plastic prototypes and entered the realm of biology. Using specialized bioinks made of living cells mixed with supportive gels, researchers can print scaffolds shaped like ears, blood vessels, or patches of skin. These scaffolds guide cells to grow in 3 dimensions, forming tissues that mimic natural structures. The technology is still developing, but printed cartilage, bone, and liver tissue have already been tested in laboratories. One day, entire organs might be printed on demand, eliminating the desperate shortages of donors. Even now, bioprinting is used to create realistic models for drug testing, reducing the need for animal experiments. The idea that a machine could assemble living tissue layer by layer feels futuristic, but it is happening today. Each printed scaffold brings medicine closer to a world where replacement parts for the human body can be manufactured as easily as mechanical ones. Artificial skin helps burn victims recover. Severe burns destroy not only the surface of the skin, but also its ability to heal itself. For centuries, treatments were limited to painful grafts, often with poor results. In the 20th century, scientists began developing artificial skin, engineered layers of material that mimic the structure and function of real skin. These synthetic coverings protect wounds, prevent infection, and provide a framework for new cells to grow. Some are made from collagen and polymers, while others are seeded with the patient's own cells to encourage integration. Artificial skin has saved countless lives, especially for patients with burns covering large areas of the body. Beyond survival, it helps reduce scarring and restore mobility. Though it cannot yet replicate the full complexity of natural skin with sweat glands and nerves, the progress is extraordinary. What once left survivors disfigured and vulnerable now offers hope of healing and renewal. Lab-grown organs are already being tested. The shortage of donor organs is one of medicine's greatest challenges. Each year, thousands die waiting for transplants. To address this, scientists are growing organs in laboratories. Using stem cells placed on biodegradable scaffolds, researchers have cultivated bladders, tracheas, and blood vessels that function inside patients. More complex organs, like hearts and livers, are still in development, but progress is steady. One approach, called decellularization, washes away the cells of an animal organ, leaving behind a protein framework, which is then repopulated with human cells. These lab-grown structures aim to reduce rejection by matching the patient's own biology. Though large-scale production remains distant, early successes prove the concept is possible. A future where custom-grown organs are available on demand would redefine medicine. No longer would patients wait in uncertainty. Healing could be built, cell by cell, in the laboratory. Cancer immunotherapy teaches the body to fight tumors. Cancer is cunning, often evading the immune system's watchful eye. Immunotherapy seeks to awaken the body's defenses, teaching them to recognize and destroy malignant cells. One method uses checkpoint inhibitors, drugs that remove the brakes cancer places on immune cells. Others involve vaccines that train immunity against specific tumor markers. Perhaps most striking are T therapies, in which a patient's own T cells are genetically engineered to hunt down cancer with precision. For some patients, especially with blood cancers, the results have been dramatic. Complete remission where all else failed. These treatments can be grueling and costly, but they represent a profound shift in strategy. Instead of poisoning tumors with radiation or drugs, enlist the immune system itself. Immunotherapy blurs the line between medicine and biology, reminding us that the most powerful weapon against disease may already exist within us, waiting to be guided into action. Monoclonal antibodies target specific diseases. Antibodies are the immune system's smart weapons designed to lock onto particular invaders. In the 1970s, scientists discovered how to produce monoclonal antibodies, identical copies of a single, highly specific antibody. These molecules became precision tools in medicine. Today, they treat cancers, autoimmune diseases, and infections by binding to unique targets on cells or pathogens. Some block signals that tumors use to grow, while others neutralize viruses or calm overactive immune responses. Monoclonal antibodies are also key in diagnostics, forming the basis of pregnancy tests and rapid disease kits. Though expensive to produce, they represent one of the most successful biotechnologies ever developed. By mimicking the immune system's natural defenses with laboratory precision, monoclonal antibodies bring targeted treatment where once only blunt tools existed. They turn the body's own strategies into medicine, showing how closely science can follow nature's design. mRNA vaccines were decades in the making. To many, mRNA vaccines seemed to appear suddenly during the COVID-19 pandemic, but the technology had been under development for decades. Messenger RNA, or mRNA, is the molecule cells use to translate genetic code into proteins. Scientists realized they could deliver synthetic mRNA encoding viral proteins, prompting the body to produce them temporarily and trigger immunity. Early attempts in the 1990s failed, as mRNA degraded quickly and provoked strong immune reactions. Years of research refined the process, stabilizing the molecules and packaging them in lipid nanoparticles. By the time COVID-19 emerged, the groundwork was ready. Within months, safe and effective vaccines were produced, an unprecedented speed in medicine. The success of mRNA vaccines opened doors to new treatments, not only for infectious diseases, but also for cancers and genetic disorders. It shows how persistence, often unnoticed for years, can suddenly change the world in a moment of crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated vaccine innovation. The global crisis of COVID-19 pushed medicine into overdrive. Traditional vaccine development often took a decade or more. During the pandemic, researchers, governments, and companies compressed timelines without compromising safety, thanks to years of prior research on coronaviruses and mRNA technology. Multiple vaccines emerged in less than a year, an achievement unprecedented in medical history. This acceleration also transformed how clinical trials were run, how data was shared, and how manufacturing scaled worldwide. The urgency fostered new collaborations, open science, and public-private partnerships. Beyond COVID, these innovations will benefit medicine for years to come, enabling faster responses to future pandemics and perhaps even cancer vaccines. The pandemic was a time of loss and upheaval, but also of astonishing scientific progress. In the face of crisis, medicine advanced decades in a matter of months, showing what humanity can achieve when knowledge and necessity align. Some vaccines use harmless viruses as delivery vehicles. Not all vaccines rely on weakened pathogens or mRNA. Some are built on viral vectors, harmless viruses engineered to carry genetic instructions. These vectors enter cells and produce proteins from the target pathogen, stimulating immunity without causing disease. Adenoviruses are commonly used, repurposed from viruses that normally cause mild colds. This method was employed in several COVID-19 vaccines, as well as vaccines against Ebola. Viral vectors are versatile, stable, and capable of producing strong immune responses. Scientists are exploring them for personalized cancer vaccines and even treatments for genetic disorders. The concept is ingenious. Turn a virus into a Trojan horse, delivering protection rather than illness. Though concerns remain about rare side effects, the approach demonstrates the creativity of vaccine science. By taming viruses, medicine has found a way to transform nature's parasites into allies, rewriting their role from destroyer to protector. Antivirals can tame once deadly infections. While antibiotics revolutionized the treatment of bacterial disease, viruses proved far trickier. They hide inside human cells, using our machinery to replicate, making them difficult to target without harming the host. Antiviral drugs took decades to develop. Early breakthroughs included drugs for herpes and influenza, which interfered with viral enzymes or replication. Later came powerful cocktails for HIV, transforming it from a fatal diagnosis into a chronic condition. Antivirals have also turned once deadly infections like hepatitis C into curable diseases. The development of antivirals required extraordinary advances in molecular biology, unraveling the life cycles of viruses step by step. Each new drug is like a lockpick designed for a single mechanism. Though viruses continue to evolve, antivirals have given humanity real tools to fight back. They stand as proof that even the most elusive enemies can be contained with enough patience and ingenuity. The first antiviral was used against herpes. In the 1970s, scientists developed aciclovir, the first truly effective antiviral drug, targeting the herpes simplex virus. It worked by mimicking one of the building blocks of DNA. When the virus tried to copy itself, it incorporated the false piece, halting replication. Remarkably, the drug was highly selective, affecting infected cells while leaving healthy ones unharmed. Aciclovir transformed the treatment of herpes infections, reducing symptoms and recurrences. It also paved the way for similar drugs against other viruses, including chickenpox and shingles. The success of aciclovir proved that antivirals were not an impossible dream, but a practical reality. From this starting point, an entire class of therapies grew, targeting viruses with increasing precision. The humble beginnings of antiviral therapy remind us how a single breakthrough can open new fields, turning despair into possibility and setting medicine on a course that continues to save lives today. HIV treatment turned a fatal disease into a chronic one. When HIV emerged in the 1980s, it seemed unstoppable. The virus destroyed immune systems, leaving patients vulnerable to infections that quickly became fatal. Entire communities were devastated. Early treatments were few and often ineffective. Then, in the mid-90s, came highly active antiretroviral therapy, combinations of drugs that targeted different stages of the virus's life cycle. For the first time, patients could suppress viral replication to undetectable levels. The transformation was profound. HIV went from a death sentence to a manageable chronic condition. People regained health, returned to work, and lived long lives. The drugs were not a cure, and access remains unequal, but the shift represented one of medicine's greatest victories. It showed how collaboration, activism, and science could change the course of a pandemic. HIV treatment continues to evolve, bringing the hope that one day, elimination or even a true cure may be within reach. Prions are infectious proteins that defy convention. For generations, scientists believed all infectious agents were living organisms, bacteria, fungi, or viruses. Then came prions, infectious proteins with no DNA or RNA at all. First identified in rare brain diseases like Creutzfeldt-Jakob in humans and Scrapie in sheep, prions defied expectations. They work by causing normal proteins in the brain to misfold, triggering a chain reaction of damage. Prions spread slowly but inexorably, leading to fatal neurodegeneration. The idea was so radical that it faced intense skepticism until irrefutable evidence accumulated. Prions challenged biology's very definition of life. They showed that infection could be carried not by genes but by shape alone, a folded protein becoming a destructive template. Though rare, prion diseases remain untreatable and mysterious, haunting the edges of medicine. They are a reminder that nature still holds surprises capable of overturning our deepest assumptions. Mad cow disease revealed a medical mystery. In the 1980s and 90s, Britain faced a terrifying outbreak of bovine spongiform encephalopathy, better known as mad cow disease. Cattle fed on contaminated feed developed bizarre symptoms: stumbling, aggression, and eventually death. Alarm grew when cases of a similar disease appeared in young humans traced to beef products. It became clear that prions, infectious proteins, had crossed from animals to people. The crisis shook agriculture, medicine, and public trust, leading to massive culls of livestock and strict reforms in food safety. Mad cow disease revealed not only the devastating potential of prions, but also how human practices like recycling animal byproducts into feed could amplify risk. Though rare, the outbreak showed that even invisible, unconventional pathogens could leap between species with deadly effect. It remains a sobering lesson in vigilance, reminding us that medicine must always be prepared for the unexpected. Antibiotics do not work against viruses. Despite their life-saving power, antibiotics are powerless against viruses. This fact is sometimes forgotten, leading to misuse that fuels resistance. Antibiotics target structures unique to bacteria, cell walls, ribosomes, enzymes, that viruses simply lack. Viruses hide inside our own cells, using our machinery to replicate, and so require entirely different strategies. Treating a viral infection like the flu or a cold with antibiotics not only fails but also encourages resistant bacteria to evolve. Understanding this distinction has been crucial in modern medicine. It has driven the search for antivirals, vaccines, and supportive therapies tailored specifically for viruses. It also underscores the importance of accurate diagnosis, so doctors can determine whether an illness is bacterial or viral. The difference may seem technical, but it has profound consequences for treatment, survival, and the long struggle to preserve antibiotics for when they truly work. Bacteriophages are viruses that kill bacteria. While some viruses threaten us, others can be allies. Bacteriophages, or phages for short, are viruses that specifically infect and destroy bacteria. They are the most numerous biological entities on Earth, outnumbering all other organisms combined. Phages attach to bacterial cells, inject their genetic material, and use the cell's machinery to reproduce, ultimately bursting the bacterium apart. In the early 20th century, scientists experimented with phage therapy, using them to treat infections. Interest waned after antibiotics appeared, but as resistance spreads, phages are returning to the spotlight. Unlike broad-spectrum antibiotics, phages can target bacteria with exquisite precision, leaving other microbes unharmed. They can also evolve alongside bacteria, adapting as resistance emerges. The idea that viruses, once seen only as threats, could save us from bacterial superbugs is a reminder of nature's complexity, where enemies can also be turned into allies. Phage therapy is returning as antibiotic resistance rises. In parts of Eastern Europe, phage therapy never disappeared. Clinics in Georgia and Poland continued to refine phage treatments for decades, even as the rest of the world turned to antibiotics. Now, with resistance threatening to undo the antibiotic revolution, interest in phages is surging worldwide. Patients with infections resistant to every known drug have been saved through experimental phage therapy, where customized cocktails of viruses are designed to attack the offending bacteria. Advances in genetic engineering allow scientists to tweak phages for greater effectiveness and safety. Challenges remain. Phages are highly specific, requiring careful matching, and regulatory frameworks are still adapting. But the promise is immense. Phage therapy may become an essential part of the future arsenal, a 21st century revival of a century-old idea. It shows that sometimes the past holds solutions to the problems of tomorrow. Some cancers can be traced to viruses. Not all cancers arise from random mutations or environmental toxins. Some are triggered by viruses. The human papillomavirus, or HPV, is linked to cervical cancer, throat cancers, and more. Hepatitis B and C viruses can lead to liver cancer, while Epstein-Barr virus is associated with certain lymphomas. These discoveries were revolutionary, showing that cancer can sometimes begin with infection. The implications for prevention are profound. Vaccines against HPV and hepatitis now prevent many cases of cancer before they start. It reframes cancer not only as a genetic or environmental disease, but also as an infectious one in some cases. The link between viruses and cancer demonstrates the intricate interplay between pathogens and our cells. It also highlights the quiet triumph of vaccines, not only protecting against infections, but also against cancers that might otherwise emerge decades later. The first chemotherapy was derived from mustard gas. During the early 20th century, doctors noticed something unusual about soldiers who had been exposed to mustard gas. Their white blood cells, the very defenders of the body, were wiped out in alarming numbers. This tragic observation sparked a bold idea. If the chemical could suppress rapidly dividing cells, might it also slow the relentless growth of cancer? From this grim seed, the first chemotherapies were born. Nitrogen mustards were tried against lymphoma, and the results were startling. Tumors shrank, fevers dropped, and suffering eased, even if only for a time. It was not a cure, but it was proof that cancer could be fought with chemicals designed to exploit its speed of division. From there, chemotherapy grew into a vast family of drugs, each targeting different cellular machinery. What began as a weapon of war became a weapon against disease, changing the course of medicine. Radiation therapy uses energy to target tumors. Radiation therapy is one of the most powerful tools in oncology, harnessing high-energy beams to damage the DNA inside cancer cells. Because cancer often grows quickly and repairs itself poorly, it is especially vulnerable to this kind of precise assault. Over the years, The technology has become ever more refined. Linear accelerators deliver beams from multiple angles, sculpting doses around tumors. Proton therapy places energy with exquisite accuracy, striking deep tissues while sparing those nearby. Imaging systems even allow doctors to adjust the beam in real time, following the natural rise and fall of a patient's breathing. Radiation cannot cure every cancer, but it can shrink tumors that cannot be removed, sterilize surgical sites, and sometimes even provide long-term control. It is invisible, silent, and carefully calculated, a fusion of physics and medicine that turns energy itself into a healing force. Targeted therapy attacks cancer cells while sparing healthy ones. For decades, chemotherapy battered every dividing cell in the body, often causing devastating side effects. Targeted therapy offered something radically different, a way to strike at the unique vulnerabilities of cancer cells while leaving healthy tissues relatively untouched. These treatments zero in on specific proteins, receptors, or signaling pathways that tumors rely upon. In some cases, a single pill can switch off a rogue molecular driver, causing tumors to shrink dramatically. While resistance still develops and not every cancer has a clear target, this approach changed oncology forever. Instead of treating cancer as a uniform enemy, doctors began tailoring therapy to the precise biology of each patient's disease. The results can be striking, sometimes transforming what was once a grim diagnosis into a chronic, manageable condition. Targeted therapy marked a turning point, showing that precision could succeed where brute force had faltered. CAR T-cells reprogrammed the immune system. CAR T-cell therapy represents one of the most extraordinary advances in modern cancer treatment. Doctors begin by collecting a patient's own T-cells, white blood cells designed to recognize and destroy threats. In the laboratory, these cells are genetically engineered to express a new receptor, one that locks onto proteins displayed on the surface of cancer cells. Once multiplied and returned to the patient, the reprogrammed army begins its hunt. In certain blood cancers, CAR T therapies have led to astonishing responses, with disease that once seemed unstoppable vanishing within weeks. The treatment is not without risks. The unleashed immune response can sometimes cause dangerous inflammation. Yet its success has proven that the immune system can be rewired to see what it once missed. For many, CAR T therapy is more than medicine. It is their own body, upgraded and unleashed, turning defense into cure. Some cancer patients now achieve complete remission. For much of history, a diagnosis of cancer was synonymous with despair. But today, many patients can experience remission, where the disease becomes undetectable and life regains a sense of normalcy. Advances in surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, targeted therapies, and immunotherapies have made this possible. Some cancers, once universally fatal, now respond so well that patients live for decades afterward. Remission does not always mean cure. The disease can return, sometimes years later, but it allows people to move forward, to plan, to hope. Children once confined to hospital wards now grow into adulthood. Adults who thought their time was short see grandchildren born. Every remission is a triumph of science, medicine, and human resilience. While vigilance remains necessary, these successes remind us how far we have come and how the future of oncology may hold even brighter possibilities. Placebos can produce real physiological changes. The placebo effect reveals one of the most fascinating truths in medicine. The mind and body are inseparably linked. When a patient believes they are receiving a treatment, even if it is just a sugar pill or a saline injection, the body can respond as if the therapy were real. Pain can diminish, anxiety can lessen, and even measurable biological changes can occur, such as lowered blood pressure or altered hormone levels. This is not mere imagination. It is the brain triggering chemical pathways that influence how the body functions. While placebos cannot cure infections or destroy tumors, their power to affect symptoms is undeniable. They highlight the importance of trust, environment, and expectation in healing. Every treatment, real or not, is shaped by the context in which it is given, reminding us that medicine is always part biology, part belief. Double-blind trials revolutionized clinical testing. To test a new treatment fairly, researchers needed a way to silence both hope and bias. The solution was the double-blind trial. In this design, neither the patient nor the doctor knows who is receiving the real drug and who is receiving a placebo or alternative. This prevents expectation from influencing the results and ensures that any improvement can be measured with greater certainty. Double-blind trials have become the foundation of modern medicine, used to test everything from pain relievers to vaccines. They are not easy to design, safety must be monitored, outcomes defined, and protocols carefully followed, but they transformed anecdotal evidence into reliable knowledge. Without them, many ineffective or harmful treatments might still be widely used. The double-blind trial is, in many ways, the quiet guardian of medical truth. The randomized controlled trial is the gold standard. When testing a therapy, even the smallest differences between patients can sway results. Randomization eliminates that problem by assigning participants to groups by chance. This ensures that age, genetics, lifestyle, and other hidden variables are distributed evenly, allowing researchers to compare treatments fairly. Combined with blinding and precise outcome measures, randomized controlled trials are considered the gold standard of medical research. They have guided the approval of countless drugs and interventions, determining which ideas become trusted practice and which fade into history. While not every question can be answered this way, when possible, the randomized controlled trial provides clarity that no other method can match. It is the most powerful way medicine has to turn uncertainty into knowledge and knowledge into healing. Ethics boards protect patients and research. Every clinical trial involves real people, not just data points. To protect them, ethics boards, also called institutional review boards, review every study before it begins. They ask vital questions. Are the risks justified by the potential benefits? Has the patient given fully informed consent? Are vulnerable groups being treated fairly? Once approved, the boards continue to monitor the research, demanding reports, reviewing adverse events, and intervening if safety is compromised. These safeguards were built from hard lessons in history, when research sometimes ignored human dignity. Today, they serve as a constant reminder that progress must never come at the cost of trust. Thanks to these boards, science moves forward more slowly, but more responsibly, with the patient's well-being always at its center. The Tuskegee study changed research ethics forever. One of the darkest chapters in medical history unfolded in the Tuskegee syphilis study, which ran for 40 years in the United States. Hundreds of black men with syphilis were observed, but not treated, even after penicillin became the known cure. They were misled and left to suffer, while researchers watched. When the truth was revealed, public outrage was immense. The betrayal of trust led to sweeping reforms in research ethics, including stricter rules for informed consent, the establishment of oversight committees, and the Belmont Report, which laid out core principles of TAR: respect, beneficence, and justice. The Tuskegee study remains a warning of what happens when science forgets humanity. Today, its legacy is not only remembered, but woven into the very structure of ethical research, ensuring that such a violation of trust will never happen again. Organ transplants require precise tissue matching. Every organ carries tiny molecular signatures that the immune system uses to distinguish self from non-self. For a transplant to succeed, these signatures must align as closely as possible between donor and recipient. Doctors test for compatibility using blood type and human leukocyte antigens, the proteins that sit on the surface of cells. A poor match can trigger rapid rejection, where the immune system attacks the new organ as though it were an invader. Even with modern medicines, better matches greatly increase the chances of long-term success. Behind each transplant lies a careful choreography of testing, matching, and timing. Hearts and livers must be transplanted within hours, kidneys within days. The matching process is not glamorous, but it is the invisible arithmetic that transforms an act of donation into a chance of survival. Immunosuppressants prevent rejection. Even the best tissue match cannot fool the immune system completely. Left unchecked, the body will eventually attack a transplanted organ. Immunosuppressants, drugs that quiet the immune response, are therefore essential. Early versions were crude and dangerous, but the development of drugs like cyclosporine revolutionized transplantation. Patients could now live for decades with donor organs. Taking immunosuppressants requires careful balance. Too little, and the organ may be lost too much, and the patient is vulnerable to infection. Doctors tailor doses and combinations to each person, aiming for the narrow zone where the immune system is calmed but not silenced. These drugs turn transplantation from a rare miracle into a routine treatment, extending countless lives and redefining what medicine could achieve. Black market organ trafficking is a global problem. The desperate shortage of donor organs has fueled an underground trade that exploits the most vulnerable. In some parts of the world, impoverished individuals are coerced or deceived into selling kidneys, often for a fraction of what brokers demand from recipients. Others are victims of outright theft, waking from surgery without consent. These black market transplants are often unsafe, lacking proper sterilization, follow-up care, or reliable matching. They leave donors harmed and recipients at risk of infection and rejection. Governments and international organizations continue to fight this practice, but demand remains high. The solution lies not only in law enforcement, but in expanding legitimate donation systems, making them transparent, fair, and accessible. The black market stands as a stark reminder. Saving one life should never come at the cost of another. Xenotransplantation uses animal organs in humans. With more patients waiting for transplants than there are organs available, scientists have turned to an unusual possibility, using animal organs instead. Pigs are the leading candidates because their organs are similar in size and function to those of humans. But there are immense challenges. The human immune system reacts violently against animal tissues, rejecting them within minutes unless carefully engineered. Researchers have begun altering pig genomes, removing problematic proteins and adding human genes to reduce rejection. The risk of animal viruses crossing into humans is another obstacle. Still, the dream is compelling. If successful, xenotransplantation could end waiting lists entirely, providing a nearly limitless supply of life-saving organs. For now, it remains experimental, but each step brings it closer to reality. Pig hearts have been experimentally transplanted. In recent years, surgeons have taken extraordinary steps by transplanting genetically modified pig hearts into human patients. These hearts, altered to reduce the risk of rejection, have been placed into individuals who had no other options. The results have been mixed. Some patients survived for weeks, their new hearts beating strongly, before complications emerged. Others succumbed more quickly. Each attempt, however, has provided invaluable lessons: which genetic edits are most effective, how the immune system reacts, and what medical protocols can support the graft. These experimental procedures are still far from routine, but they represent a glimpse of the future. If scientists can refine the process, pig hearts may one day provide a bridge to human transplants, or even serve as permanent solutions. For now, they stand as milestones in a field that is slowly pushing the boundaries of possibility. Artificial blood products are being developed. Blood transfusions save millions of lives each year, but donated blood has limitations. It must be matched, carefully stored, and used before it expires. Supplies can run dangerously low in emergencies or in regions with limited donors. To solve this, researchers are developing artificial blood products. Some are based on modified hemoglobin, the oxygen-carrying molecule inside red cells. Others use synthetic compounds that can dissolve and transport gases. Each approach faces challenges, ensuring safety, avoiding side effects, and delivering oxygen efficiently. Still, the potential is enormous. Artificial blood could be stored for long periods, used universally regardless of blood type, and transported anywhere in the world. While no product has yet fully replaced donated blood, the progress so far suggests that one day, hospitals may stock synthetic supplies ready to save lives at a moment's notice. Blood types were a revolutionary discovery. In the early days of transfusion, doctors were mystified. Some patients survived with renewed strength, others died in agony. The breakthrough came in the early 20th century, when Karl Landsteiner discovered that human blood comes in distinct types, marked by subtle differences on red blood cells. Mixing incompatible types triggered catastrophic immune reactions, while matching types saved lives. The ABO system, and later the Rh factor, made transfusion predictable and safe. This discovery transformed medicine. Suddenly, surgeries became less risky, childbirth complications more manageable, and trauma care far more effective. The knowledge that blood comes in different types may seem obvious now, but it was once a revelation that rewrote the rules of medicine and laid the foundation for modern transfusion science. Universal donors provide life-saving supplies. Among the different blood types, one is especially precious: O negative. People with this blood type are often called universal donors because their red cells lack the antigens that would trigger an immune reaction in most recipients. In emergencies, when there is no time to test and match a patient's blood, O-negative supplies can be given immediately, buying precious minutes that can mean the difference between life and death. Blood banks around the world carefully manage these supplies, knowing how vital they are for trauma victims, surgical patients, and newborns. Universal donors, though relatively few, provide a lifeline that extends far beyond their own communities. Their blood is the silent safeguard standing by for the moments when time simply cannot be spared. Plasma can carry antibodies between people. Plasma, the golden liquid that makes up more than half of blood, carries far more than water and nutrients. Within it are antibodies, proteins that the immune system has carefully crafted to fight off infections. Transferring plasma from someone who has recovered from a disease to someone still struggling can provide immediate, temporary immunity. This approach does not teach the recipient's immune system how to fight, but it lends them borrowed defenses, like handing over a shield in the middle of battle. Plasma therapies have saved lives during outbreaks and are also used to treat people with immune deficiencies. In every drop, there are countless molecules shaped by experience, carrying memories of past battles that can be shared from one person to another. Convalescent plasma has been used for pandemics. When new diseases sweep across the world, medicine sometimes turns to one of its oldest tools: the blood of survivors. During the influenza pandemic of the early 20th century, doctors used convalescent plasma to try to protect the sick. The idea resurfaced with later outbreaks, including Ebola and COVID-19. Results have varied, sometimes providing real benefit, other times proving less effective than hoped. But the principle remains powerful. In the early days of a pandemic, when no vaccine or targeted drug yet exists, convalescent plasma offers a bridge. It carries antibodies forged in another body, passed on to those still fighting. Even in an age of advanced medicine, this simple act of sharing immunity remains one of the most human and immediate responses to crisis. Surgery was once performed without washing hands. In the 19th century, surgery was often performed in conditions that would horrify us today. Doctors wore their everyday coats into the operating theatre, and their instruments were rarely sterilized. Surgeons moved from patient to patient without washing their hands, carrying invisible microbes along with them. The result was devastating. Infections were rampant, and many people died, not from the surgery itself, but from the fevers that followed. At the time, germ theory was not yet understood, and doctors sometimes resisted the idea that they themselves could be the cause of harm. Hospitals became places of fear, where survival after surgery was as much a matter of luck as skill. Looking back, it seems unthinkable, but it underscores how far medicine has traveled in just a short span of time, from ignorance of microbes to the rigorous sterility that now saves lives every day. Semmelweis advocated handwashing before germ theory. Ignaz Semmelweis, a Hungarian physician in the mid-19th century, noticed something troubling. Women giving birth in clinics staffed by doctors had far higher rates of deadly childbed fever than those attended by midwives. Searching for answers, he realized that doctors often came directly from autopsies to deliver babies, without washing their hands. Semmelweis ordered his staff to wash in a chlorine solution before touching patients, and mortality rates dropped dramatically. Yet his discovery was met with resistance, even ridicule, because it challenged the beliefs of the time. He could not yet explain germs. Louis Pasteur's work was still to come, but his insistence on cleanliness laid the groundwork for modern hygiene. Semmelweis himself faced rejection and tragedy, but his legacy endures. Today, every time a doctor scrubs in before surgery or a nurse disinfects their hands, they are honoring the insight of a man who saw what others refused to. Louis Pasteur proved germs caused disease. In the 19th century, many still believed that disease arose from bad air or mysterious miasmas. Louis Pasteur shattered that notion. Through meticulous experiments, he showed that microorganisms were not only present, but were the actual agents of disease and decay. He proved that boiling could prevent spoilage, that sterilization stopped contamination, and that specific microbes caused specific illnesses. Pasteur's work opened the door to vaccines, antiseptics, and a whole new understanding of medicine. It was not just theory, it was practical science that saved lives. Pasteur developed vaccines for rabies and anthrax, demonstrating that microbes could be tamed as well as fought. His discoveries helped transform hospitals from places of dread into centers of healing. More than a century later, every disinfectant bottle and every sterilized surgical tool carries a trace of Pasteur's vision, that by controlling the smallest of life forms, we could change the course of human health. Joseph Lister pioneered antiseptic surgery. Joseph Lister looked at Pasteur's discoveries about microbes and asked a simple but revolutionary question. Could surgery be made safe by killing germs before they caused infection? In the mid-19th century, Lister began using carbolic acid to sterilize instruments, clean wounds, and spray into the air of operating rooms. The results were extraordinary. Patients who had once have succumbed to infection began to recover. Mortality rates dropped, and surgery, once a gamble, became far safer. At first, colleagues resisted the idea of invisible germs seemed far-fetched, but the evidence grew undeniable. Over time, Lister's antiseptic methods evolved into the modern principles of aseptic technique: sterile gowns, gloves, masks, and instruments. Today, every operation, from a simple appendectomy to a heart transplant, carries the quiet legacy of Joseph Lister. His insistence that cleanliness could conquer infection changed surgery forever. Florence Nightingale revolutionized nursing. When Florence Nightingale arrived at military hospitals during the Crimean War in the mid-19th century, conditions were appalling. Soldiers lay in overcrowded, filthy wards where disease spread faster than wounds could heal. Nightingale imposed order and hygiene, insisting on clean bedding, ventilation, and proper nutrition. Mortality rates plummeted. Beyond her immediate impact, she transformed nursing into a respected profession, training generations of caregivers and emphasizing compassion grounded in science. She also pioneered the use of statistics in medicine, creating striking charts that revealed the preventable causes of death. Nightingale's legacy was not just in the soldiers she saved, but in reshaping healthcare itself. Hospitals became places of healing rather than despair, and nursing became a vocation that combined empathy with expertise. Her lantern, carried through dark wards at night, remains a symbol of hope and care in medicine to this day. The Red Cross became a global medical force. Founded in the 19th century by Henri Dunant after witnessing the horrors of war, the Red Cross began as a movement to care for the wounded, regardless of side. What started as a small humanitarian effort quickly grew into a global force for medical aid. The organization pioneered the use of neutral volunteers on battlefields, and its symbol, a red cross on a white background, became a sign of protection. Over time, its mission expanded, providing disaster relief, blood services, and health education worldwide. The Red Cross established principles of neutrality and impartiality that set new standards for humanitarian work. In every earthquake, flood, or conflict zone, the presence of Red Cross workers signals not politics, but help. It stands as proof that compassion, organized and committed, can transcend borders and save lives on a global scale. Field medicine advanced rapidly during wars. Wars are tragedies, but they have often driven rapid advances in medicine. On battlefields, the urgent need to treat wounds and save lives has forced innovation. Techniques for stopping bleeding, amputating limbs, and evacuating the injured all improved under fire. The American Civil War saw the rise of organized ambulance services. World War I accelerated the use of blood transfusions and triage systems to prioritize care. World War II brought antibiotics, penicillin turning once fatal infections into survivable injuries. Later conflicts refined surgical techniques, prosthetics, and trauma care. Many practices we now take for granted: emergency medicine, mobile hospitals, helicopter evacuations, trace their origins to war. While the cost of conflict is immeasurable, the medical lessons learned on battlefields have echoed into civilian life, making everyday surgeries, emergency rooms, and disaster responses far more effective than they once were. Prosthetics improved because of combat injuries. The history of prosthetics stretches back thousands of years, but wars of the modern age pushed their development into new realms. Large numbers of injured soldiers returning from battle created both urgency and resources for innovation. After World War I, simple wooden limbs were replaced with more functional designs. By World War II, lightweight metals and new joints allowed for greater mobility. Recent conflicts have spurred the development of advanced prosthetics controlled by muscles, nerves, and even thought. Some modern devices can provide sensation, allowing amputees to feel pressure or texture. What began as a crude effort to restore appearance has become a sophisticated science aimed at restoring function, independence, and dignity. Today, prosthetic technology continues to advance, with possibilities ranging from robotic integration to direct brain control, all rooted in the painful lessons of war. Vaccination campaigns have eradicated smallpox. Smallpox was once among humanity's greatest scourges, killing millions and scarring countless more. For centuries, it swept through populations with relentless cruelty. The development of the smallpox vaccine in the 18th century offered hope, but it was only through global cooperation that eradication became possible. In the 20th century, an international campaign reached into the most remote villages, vaccinating entire populations and containing outbreaks. In 1980, the World Health Organization declared smallpox eradicated, the first disease in human history to be completely eliminated. It was a triumph of science, logistics, and human determination. No longer does anyone suffer its fevers or bear its scars. Smallpox stands as proof that coordinated vaccination can achieve the impossible, offering a template for future campaigns against other deadly diseases. Polio is almost eliminated worldwide. For much of the 20th century, polio was a disease that terrified parents. It could paralyze children overnight, leaving them in wheelchairs or iron lungs. The development of the polio vaccine by Jonas Salk and later Albert Sabin changed everything. Mass vaccination campaigns dramatically reduced cases, and entire countries declared the disease eliminated. Today, polio lingers only in a handful of regions, its existence held up by conflict, mistrust, and limited access to healthcare. Yet the progress is remarkable. From hundreds of thousands of cases each year to a mere few dozen worldwide. The near eradication of polio is a reminder of what global cooperation and science can accomplish. It is also a call to finish the work, to push until no child anywhere ever has to face the sudden stillness of polio again. Malaria still kills hundreds of thousands each year. Malaria is an ancient foe, carried by the bite of mosquitoes that transmit tiny parasites into the bloodstream. Despite centuries of effort, it continues to claim hundreds of thousands of lives every year, mostly among children in sub-Saharan Africa. Treatments exist, and prevention tools like insecticide-treated nets and indoor spraying have saved millions. Yet the parasite adapts, resisting drugs and outlasting interventions. Recently, new vaccines have begun to emerge, offering a long-awaited weapon against the disease. Malaria's persistence is a stark reminder that medicine's victories are never final. The fight against it has spurred countless innovations, from better diagnostics to community health programs. Each step saves lives, but the scale of the challenge remains immense. Malaria is a disease that humbles us, ancient, adaptable, and still demanding relentless effort to defeat. Bed nets have saved millions from mosquitoes. Sometimes, the simplest solutions are the most powerful. Insecticide-treated bed nets have become one of the most effective tools against malaria. At night, when mosquitoes are most active, the nets provide both a physical barrier and a chemical defense. Entire villages protected by nets have seen dramatic drops in infection rates. The World Health Organization estimates that millions of lives, especially those of children, have been saved through widespread distribution. Bed nets are inexpensive, easy to use, and remarkably effective. Yet challenges remain. Nets wear out, mosquitoes evolve resistance, and access is not universal. Even so, their success is a testament to the power of low-cost, community-wide interventions. In the quiet darkness of countless homes, the simple act of sleeping under a net has meant the difference between life and death. Antibiotics are derived from soil microbes. The discovery of antibiotics transformed medicine, and many of these life-saving drugs come from the most unassuming of sources, the soil beneath our feet. Streptomyces bacteria and other microbes produce compounds that kill or inhibit their microbial rivals. Humans learn to harness these natural weapons, refining them into antibiotics like streptomycin, tetracycline, and erythromycin. This microscopic arms race, honed over millions of years in the dirt, became our greatest defense against bacterial infections. What once killed millions, pneumonia, tuberculosis, sepsis, could now be treated. The soil, so ordinary and overlooked, turned out to be a treasure chest of medicines. Even today, researchers search for new antibiotics in remote environments, from deserts to caves, hoping to outpace resistant bacteria. Every handful of earth may carry secrets that could one day save countless lives. Some medicines come from deep-sea organisms. Beneath the waves, in the cold and crushing darkness of the deep ocean, life has evolved remarkable chemical defenses. Sponges, corals, and microorganisms produce compounds to ward off predators, fight infections, or compete for space. Scientists exploring these extreme habitats have discovered molecules with astonishing medical potential. Some show promise as cancer treatments, others as antivirals or pain relievers. Because deep-sea life thrives in such unusual conditions, the chemicals it produces are unlike anything found on land. Collecting and studying them is difficult, but the rewards could be immense. The deep ocean remains one of Earth's last frontiers, and within its strange, glowing creatures may lie the next generation of medicines. Every dive into its depths is not just exploration, but a search for cures waiting in the darkness. Plants provide thousands of medicinal compounds. For thousands of years, people have turned to plants for healing. The bark, roots, leaves, and flowers of countless species contain chemicals that interact with the human body. Modern science has confirmed what traditional healers long suspected. Many of these compounds have powerful effects. Quinine from cinchona bark treats malaria. Paclitaxel from the Pacific yew fights cancer. Caffeine, morphine, and countless others trace their origins to plants. Even when medicines are now synthesized in laboratories, the inspiration often comes from the natural world. Botanists, chemists, and physicians continue to study plants, searching for new compounds hidden in rainforests, mountains, and meadows. Every leaf and blossom carries possibilities shaped by millions of years of evolution. Nature remains the original pharmacy, and we have only begun to open its drawers. Aspirin originated from willow bark. Long before modern pills, people chewed the bark of willow trees to ease pain and reduce fevers. The active ingredient was salicin, a natural compound with powerful effects. In the 19th century, chemists refined it into acetylsalicylic acid, the substance we know today as aspirin. It became one of the most widely used medicines in history, valued for its ability to relieve headaches, reduce inflammation, and protect the heart by thinning blood. Millions take it daily to prevent strokes or heart attacks. What began as a folk remedy became a global staple, bridging the gap between traditional healing and scientific medicine. Aspirin's story is a reminder that many modern drugs are rooted in the quiet wisdom of nature, waiting for science to uncover and refine what was already known in practice. Digitalis was discovered from the foxglove plant. In the 18th century, a physician named William Withering studied the use of foxglove, a striking purple flower, in treating patients with dropsy, what we now know as heart failure. He realized that compounds in the plant, later named digitalis, could strengthen heart contractions and reduce fluid buildup. Carefully dosed, digitalis helped patients live longer, more comfortable lives. But the line between medicine and poison was razor thin, and overdoses could be fatal. Today, digitalis derivatives are still used in cardiology, though with greater precision and monitoring. The discovery marked an early triumph of scientific medicine, where careful observation and testing transformed a folk remedy into a standardized treatment. The foxglove, beautiful and deadly, became both symbol and source of a therapy that continues to influence cardiology centuries later. Morphine is derived from the poppy. The opium poppy has been known for millennia as a source of relief and danger. In the early 19th century, chemists isolated morphine, the first true alkaloid drug, from its milky sap. Morphine quickly became a cornerstone of pain management, used in surgeries, injuries, and chronic illness. It was so effective that it was nicknamed the soldier's drug during wars, bringing comfort to the wounded. Yet morphine also revealed the dangers of dependence and addiction, a shadow that follows opioid medicines to this day. Even so, it remains one of the most important drugs in medicine, carefully prescribed for severe pain when no other option suffices. The poppy's story is a reminder of medicine's duality. The same plant can offer profound healing or deep harm, depending on how it is used. The most expensive medicine costs millions per dose. In the 21st century, some of the most advanced treatments in the world come with staggering price tags. Gene therapies designed to correct rare but devastating disorders can cost several $1 million for a single dose. One such therapy, developed for children with a lethal genetic disease affecting muscles, is among the most expensive medicines ever created. The high price reflects years of research, the complexity of production, and the rarity of the conditions they treat. For families, the cost can seem impossible, yet for some, these therapies mean the difference between life and death. Debates rage about how to balance innovation, fairness, and access. Medicine has always been priceless to those it saves, but never before has the literal cost of a cure reached such extraordinary heights. The future of medicine may be entirely personalized. Looking ahead, medicine is moving toward a future where treatments are tailored to the unique biology of each individual. Advances in genetics, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology allow doctors to analyze a person's DNA, lifestyle, and environment, then design therapies specifically for them. Instead of one-size-fits-all prescriptions, patients may receive drugs crafted for their exact mutations or immune profiles. Cancers could be mapped and treated with precision. Chronic diseases managed according to an individual's molecular fingerprint. Even prevention could become personal, with risk factors identified before illness ever begins. This vision is still emerging, but already glimpses of it are real. Personalized medicine holds the promise of making treatments more effective, safer, and more humane. It is the culmination of centuries of progress, from crude remedies to universal therapies, and now toward care as unique as each human being. And so, we've come to the end of tonight's quiet journey. From the earliest healers who worked with herbs and prayers, to the astonishing frontiers of gene editing and personalized care, medicine has always been about one thing: the hope of easing suffering. It is a story of curiosity and courage, of experiments that sometimes failed, and of breakthroughs that changed everything. As you drift here at the edge of sleep, imagine the long thread of humanity's effort to heal. Picture an ancient physician grinding leaves into a poultice. Picture a modern researcher peering into the spirals of DNA. Across thousands of years, in every culture, the same question has been asked in countless ways. How can we help? How can we give one more day, one more chance, one more breath? Medicine is never perfect. It has stumbled, and it has learned. It has walked through shadows of ignorance, mistakes, and even harm, yet always carried forward by the belief that tomorrow could be better. That belief is what makes it so profoundly human, a willingness to face illness with knowledge, compassion, and persistence, even when answers seem far away. Tonight, Let those stories be gentle companions. Let the wonder of discovery, the persistence of science, and the kindness of healers through history settle around you like a blanket. You don't need to hold on to any one detail. You don't need to remember every name or every moment. The important thing is the feeling, the reminder that through all the noise of the world, there are people everywhere working to make it a little more bearable, a little more hopeful, a little more alive. If these explorations brought you a measure of peace or gave you a way to unwind at the end of your day, we'd love for you to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you feel like sharing, you can leave a comment as well. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now though, you don't have to do anything at all. Just rest. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across a quiet sky. Sleep will come in its own time, gently, the way healing itself often does. Good night.